Hi, I'm Anthony Arvin. Welcome back to my studio. For the video today, I thought I'd talk about why I do pen and inks as my chosen medium. It actually goes back to my very young years. My dad was an artist, and he had some friends who were also incredible artists. And I loved getting to listen to them trade ideas, solve problems, and they coach my dad. I enjoyed getting to be just a fly on the wall and just listen and observe. But I had a problem when I tried to do the things they did as a 11-year-old, 12-year-old child. It was really frustrating that I couldn't accomplish the things they accomplished as seasoned artists. When I painted something, it looked like a 12-year-old painted it, whereas I would sit and watch them just do amazing things. And so that frustration drove me to want to do a medium that they didn't do. And I don't know how it came about that I started on the pen and inks, but that's where I wound up. I was fairly good at it, fairly rapidly. I was able to use the things I was learning about art in the pen and inks. And so I don't know at what point it just kind of became my thing to do the pen and inks. I had some very severe trauma in my youth. On one occasion, I actually died and was resuscitated. And another occasion, I didn't die, but I spent time in intensive care, very close to it. And it actually created in me a desire to leave my mark very young. So in those young years, teenage years, I pushed really, really hard to become the best pen and ink artist I could possibly be. And pen and inks were one of those things. It's a very old medium. The Gutenberg press was invented in mid-1400s, and they couldn't actually print photographs on a printing press until the very, very late 1800s, maybe early 1900s. So for hundreds of years, illustrations in something printed on a printing press meant pen and ink. Yeah, there was engravers. Those, I can only assume, were probably pretty expensive because they were fairly rare. Engraving is like if you look at a dollar bill and you see the portrait on the dollar bill. That's an engraved image. And it's like a pen and ink. It's a way of creating, using a single color, an image that the printing press could create that gave it shape and texture and tone so that you could recognize the face. The face looked realistic. But it's being printed with a single color of ink because printing presses for all of those years couldn't print grays. They used black ink, and it was the black ink on a white paper, and there was no in between. So it was either black or white. And artists, in order to be able to simulate 3 dimensions on an illustration, on a drawing, learned to use cross-hatching and dots and different things they could do that they're just black ink, but it would look gray in print. It would simulate gray. And those cross-hatchings and things were effective in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. But by today's standards, they look fairly crude. But with today's tools, Repairgraph kept making increasingly finer and finer tips for their mechanical drafting pens. And that gave me the ability to make things finer and finer on the pen and inks. And understanding photography gave me the ability to manipulate in my mind. I could see the images different. Before I even started the pen and ink, I could really study and understand the shapes and the shades that were actually there. And breakthroughs in things like understand the psychology of seeing. There was a book written in the early 70s that was life-changing for me and how I could see things. Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain was the name. So it was just kind of a perfect storm of things coming together that gave me the ability to take pen and inks from being a fairly crude medium to something very refined. And specifically the cross-hatching area. In Europe, there's a really popular, and I love it, style of pen and ink called pointillism. And they can achieve very smooth textures and gradients, but they still had a difficult time with portraits. And so in specific, I liked the idea of perfecting the portrait in pen and ink. And it's taken me a lot of years. I got my first paying job as an artist at about 15 doing illustrations. And that was nearly 50 years ago now. So I've spent a lot of time trying to perfect that. But as a young man in my teens, I really pushed hard because honestly, I was afraid I was going to die before I made my mark in the world. It sounds weird, but that's the way it was. When I was working on pen and inks, I was driven thinking in terms of this needs to be good enough to wow people hundreds of years from now. Then when it wasn't, then I turned around and started on another one with even more discipline and more determination. That's kind of the way it's been my lifelong push to perfect as much as I was capable of the form of pen and ink. And so the pen and inks with the cross-hatching and things that like I do are actually kind of unique to me. I do succeed most of the time in getting something that looks very photographic, or as much as can be with just black ink. That's how I got started in pen and inks and the direction I've gone. When I'd written this book, part of the same phobia that was created in me of dying without leaving my mark, I was also worried about leaving my children without having a mentor. And so young, 36 or so, I started writing letters to them as I learned things. And after hundreds of letters and getting a whole lot of positive feedback on those letters, I decided to publish a series of books. And so the books were kind of separate from the art. And I actually had one book laid out. It'd been through 6 or 7 edit passes. The designer had done the cover. The designer had done the interior. All of that stuff was done. It was even a copy had been sent to the Library of Congress, all of that. And we just didn't like the final product. So we went with one more consultant to go in and analyze for us what we needed to do. And she was the one who first threw a fit about the clip art that the designer had used in the book. And she knew that by then she knew that I was an illustrator, and she insisted that I do my own illustrations. So I dug out all the materials and blew the dust off the pens and went to the art store and bought fresh materials for a lot of things. And I started doing the illustrations for my book. And since even the name of the book, the subtitle is Things I Want My Children to Know, it just seemed appropriate to use the children as my illustrations to make the points that I was making in the book. And I adore the magic years, year to year and a half, all the way up to about 5 or 6. Children just go through an age where the world is magic, and I adore that age. I love watching their little gears grind as they're trying to figure something out, and I love seeing the joy that they get from simple things. And I try to capture that in my art. And so when I'm doing the illustrations for the book, those are the kind of things I was working on because I knew the messages I wanted to convey. And so I had the benefit of being able to do the art that matched the messages I wanted. And that is kind of how the marriage of my art background and my writing kind of came together. So if you enjoy the art of the children, then it's located in other places. There's a gallery on the website. There's also in the behind the scenes section where it shows pictures of the pen and inks actually in progress, some of the cross hatching and things being done. Anyway, if you enjoy those, you'll probably enjoy the book, because in the book you actually get to see the quote and things that's associated with the images. But that's where I got the initial desire to do pen and inks, and why I've stayed with it and done what I've done and tried to accomplish. And as an adult, I'm very happy with where I am now. I don't know that there are major improvements I can make. For years, I could see things I wanted to be able to do, but just didn't know how to do it. But I'm to the point now that I don't see more things, so I don't know what improvements will come next. Be interesting to see. I'm still young enough. I could still be doing this another 20 years, and that's a long time in the world of art. Who knows what I'll develop. But anyway, I hope that was informative and entertaining, and I hope that you get as much joy from the illustrations of the children as I did in doing them. So I'll see you on the next video.